Thank you. It's good to be here, and it's good to have the group that we have here. It seems like if it's smaller, we're able to be a little bit more interactive, so that might be a good thing. So what we're talking about today, this afternoon for our first seminar, is marriages and relationships. So two young people whose names I've forgotten have handed out a green little handout. Do you have one? Good. What about the ladies there in the corner? Do you have a handout? Do you want one? No need. Okay. You can just absorb it on your own, right? So the question is, why is marriage so tough at times? Why do some lifelong relationships click and others just seem to tick away like a time bomb? My husband and I are really blessed and fortunate that we've been together for over 40 years now. And when I tell people that, they say, oh, congratulations. And I'm not sure it was all just like good hard work. Maybe there was a little luck involved. Maybe God has helped us to stay together. There was a time when it was not that good, when we were not getting along and we wondered if we'd make it. But praise God, here we are. So it's looking good. We've got 2 children and 8 grandchildren. So Dr. Gottman, anybody here ever heard of Dr. Gottman? He's a marriage researcher based out of Seattle, and he's probably not doing it anymore, but some years ago, he was trying to figure out whether he could predict which marriages would fail or which ones would last. And he found out some very interesting things, and the result of his work is that he wrote a book called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And this isn't really a commercial, but it is a good book, and I highly recommend it if you want to go over some of the very same things we're going to talk about. And it's kind of, the format is kind of what I'm basing what I'm talking about on today. These 7, so in your handout, one of the first things I put in there was the Sound Relationship House. And there's levels on here, and these different levels are things that go into making relationships good, making your marriage last. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom, and I encourage you to take notes if you'd like to. You can use that paper or something else. And first of all, if you're going to take notes, on the wall that's on the left, I'd like you to write the word trust on the left-hand wall. Hopefully you have a pencil or a pen. And on the right, please write the word commitment. So all these things that we're talking about kind of need to be enclosed with trust and commitment. So right at the bottom level, we're talking about enhance your love map. So successful couples are intimately aware of each other's world. Have you ever talked to somebody who just met somebody either through online dating or in person, and they say, oh, we just talked all night. We couldn't get off the phone. We had so much to talk about. They're learning each other's love map. They're learning what matters to the other person, what that person likes. And the thing is, it doesn't need to end just after the first dating. It needs to continue through a lifetime. And you as a couple, you need to know the major events in each other's lives. You need to keep updating that information as their world changes. And we're going to do a little game first thing. So my ushers, young people, could you help me with this? I'd like you to go around to all the people here and have them choose 2 cards each, but the cards need to be different colors, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to give you a little test to see how well you know each other. You can give her one, yeah. And we have so few people here that we have many cards. I can give you some to take home, as a matter of fact. Take 2 each, that's fine. Yeah. And if you're here by yourself, take some cards anyhow and see if you can do this about somebody that you know, somebody that you care about, whether it's your child or your spouse, or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, somebody that you care about. Have everybody got some cards? So these cards, just so everybody knows, they're all kind of different, but they all have to do with your preferences. Like the card that I picked out just now, what is my partner's favorite animal? Well, I happen to know that. My husband's favorite animal is a little monkey that we used to have when we lived in Thailand. So I know that about him. All right, I'm going to give you a few minutes, and I want you to take turns, and I want one of you to say the answer to the card and see if you got it right with your partner. Go ahead and do that now.
Is her favorite holidays? Why? I think it's Thanksgiving. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You're doing fine. I see some smiles, meaning maybe you weren't quite right. What about you there with the pink roses on your dress? What card did you get? Do you mind sharing?
All about him. Okay, what is your partner's greatest phobia or fear?
Oh,
I put it was rats and mice.
okay. Is it true? Okay, she did it right. She knows his love map. She's got that. What about you two in the front here? Do you want to share one of yours?
Does he or she have a secret ambition? What is it? One of her secret ambitions is to perform on like America's Got Talent or GT or I can't remember the name of it anymore because it's not on American Idol.
Okay, is he right? All right, so he gets points for that. So you guys see how this works. You want to do it too? Share one of them?
Sure. If we moved, where would your partner most like to live? And both of us said we would rather not move, but if we had to move, we'd like to live in Anacortes.
Oh, okay. It's right, both of you? Yeah. So you guys get the point, don't you? That this has to do with knowing somebody else's world and knowing what makes them tick, what they care about. What about you? Is it Sarah? Siri? Yeah.
Well, it says, what is your favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
They don't like to go to restaurants. She just likes to eat at her own food.
Okay, good to know. So I guess that means you have to do some home cooking if you want to please that person. Yeah, all right. Anybody else want to share what card they have? Yes, back there. Well, he's not here to say whether that's true or not, but you can check later and see. All right, well, I have quite a few of these little cards, so I'm going to just give these out to you when you take home if you want to. Next time you go out on a date, you can do these and have a little bit more fun. So that's our bottom line of the sound relationship house that I was telling you about, and it has to do with getting to know each other. It's not always just the deep things about their emotions. Sometimes it's just like, what's their favorite song or what's their favorite book? All right, so be sure and keep on updating that information. The next level in this house is to nurture fondness and admiration. Oh, there's our cards. I just showed you the cards. All right. Next level is nurture fondness and admiration. So how do you do that? Well, fondness and admiration are two of the most crucial elements in a long-lasting romance. Without the belief that your spouse is worthy of honor and respect, where is the basis for a rewarding relationship? By reminding yourself of your spouse's positive qualities, even as you grapple with each other's flaws, and expressing out loud your fondness and admiration, you can prevent a happy marriage from deteriorating. Now, in your handout on the second page, there's a space that says the 3 A's. Do you see that? The 3 A's. This young lady will get you one. And I've written them there for our TV audience or whatever it is, but I'd like you to write these in because it will help put it in your mind. The first of these 3 A's, and these 3 A's, by the way, are things that I recommend every single day you do these with your loved one. The first one is affection. So every single day you need to show your loved one some sort of affection. It can be either arm around, or it can be like just a nice stroke of the back, or it can be I love you, it can be a wink. Well, I don't need to give you that whole list, you know what I mean. But every single day there needs to be a bit of affection. And I have a husband who likes to hug. So pretty much every day when he goes out to his work or I leave to go somewhere, we say, okay, hug. And if he's holding something with one hand, I say, nope, it needs to be both arms. And he'll do the same to me. And so we have to do the 2-arm hug. And then if he's like in a hurry, it's just like real quick. I say, oh, no, it needs to be 20 seconds. So that's our kind of fun little ritual of affection that we do, I would say, just about every day. So that's the first A. The second A is appreciation. Every day you need to show your person some appreciation. I see a lot of couples where this has fallen off. Maybe somebody's working hard every day and it's never been acknowledged. Nobody says, thank you so much for what you do for our family, or thank you for being such a good parent to our children. But those little appreciations go a long ways. And after you've done this for a while, you may have to dig a little farther. You may have to say, I really like it the way that you decorate our house so beautifully. Or I love it that you grow roses out front. I love it that you do these things. Thank you. Every day. So just to review, and I'm going to keep doing this, the first is affection, the second is appreciation. Okay, the third A that you need to do every day is a little tougher to get to because it's called admiration. And the way to think about admiration is, let's just say that you were talking to your friend about your wife or your husband, your spouse, and you're bragging a little bit. What would you say about that person? So it's not exactly, doesn't roll off the tongue quite as easily, but that would be more like, he is such a loyal person, you might say. Or he's just such a hard worker. I just really like how he has such good family values. Or he really cares about animals. You should see how he takes care of the animals. Do you see what I mean? So, and you can say these things directly to your spouse as well. It doesn't have to be like to a third person. It's admiration. So it's a little bit of a little broader than the appreciation. Does that make sense? So every day, guys, those 3 things. Now, moving up on our little ladder here of the sound house is to turn toward each other. Now, this is a little more complex, but I really want you to hear this because it's pretty important. When we're in relationship with somebody, we do things that's kind of like a bid for attention. We might say, oh, wow, look at that rainbow. And the person say, oh, yeah, that's nice, right? So that's like engaging. It's like 2 people who are talking. There's actually 3 different ways that you can respond to one of these little comments or bids for attention. And by the way, a bid for attention can even be like a big sigh. Somebody's trying to communicate something with that. Or it can even be like, I'm so sick of this housework. Or it can be, I'm just really hungry for tacos. It can be anything profound or trivial, right? So the 3 ways that you could respond to a bid for attention is, number 1, you can turn towards that person. I'll explain a little bit more about all of these. Turn towards, you can turn away, or you can turn against. Now, turning towards is responding in such a way so that the other person hears, yeah, I'm interested in you. I hear you. I understand you. I'm on your side. I'd like to help you. I'd like to be with you. I accept you, even if I don't accept your behavior. So those are the positive ways that help people get closer, is when you are responding to the person's bid by turning towards them. And it doesn't always have to be literally turning your body towards them. You might be busy on your computer and they're saying, oh, I hope you like my new dress. And if you at least say, it's nice, right? It's better than nothing, promise you. But there's better ways than that. The second one is turning away. Turning away would be like just shrugging, not paying any attention, right? It would be, again, I'm saying, oh, did you see that rainbow out there? And actually that happened this morning. There was a rainbow behind my house. So I went out to where my husband was, and I says, did you see that rainbow? And he actually looked up, and he says, oh, well, that's nice, right? I don't think he wanted to go see it, really. But he responded to my bid for some attention, which is good for me. But if he wasn't that kind of guy, he would just say, whatever, I'm busy, kind of like that, right? So that would be turning away. It's not helpful. Makes the other person feel kind of like, I'm just hanging there. Okay, then the most damaging of all of these options, though, for responding to bids is turning against. And in the same rainbow example, that would be if I says, hey, you should see that rainbow on the other side of the house. And he says, oh, you're so sentimental. It's just sickening. Right? Wouldn't that be just like really heartbreaking if somebody would say that to you? It would be pushing you away, literally pushing you away from that comment. So one of the things that Dr. Gottman found really helped keep couples together and almost predicted whether or not they would stay together was how well they responded to these emotional bids for attention. It was pretty important. I was going to do a role play with Jason about this just now, but I forgot to tell him ahead of time. So the role play was going to be like this. I was going to say, hey, I gave that presentation today. I was so nervous. And he would say, if he was turning towards me, he would say, oh, really? Tell me about it. How did it go? If he was turning away from me, he'd say, okay. And if I was saying, oh, I gave my presentation today, I was so nervous, and he was turning against, he'd say, whatever, can't you see I'm working? So you see the difference there, right? But I like to break it down in just those three things because it gives you sort of a chance to see what you're doing, what your lack of attention is really doing. You may be actually turning away or turning against by not paying attention. So the next level in this house is the letting your partner influence you. Now, this is interesting. Sometimes people get married and there's, right from the start, there's what we'd call a power difference. Like, let's just say one of the persons is quite a bit older, or maybe more educated, or more familiar with the culture. So there's a little bit of like a power thing, and one person gets in the role of being a teacher. And that person is like, oh, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is what we need to do. But then as time goes by and they become more equal, I guess you might say, in power, it's important that both of them influence each other. Right? And this would have to do with things like, well, I don't really like that style, but I see that you've done a good job decorating the room like that, so that's cool, I like it now. Do you see what I mean? Letting the other one influence you. Actually, the happiest, most stable marriages are those in which the husband treats his wife with respect and doesn't resist power and sharing. And the reason I'm saying husbands is because usually it is a wife who is more willing to be influenced by the man in her life. Not always, but usually that's the case. So even the data indicates that in the vast majority of wives, even in unstable marriages, wives already try to treat their husbands with love and respect. Too often men don't return the favor. So I'm not getting down on men particularly, but I think it's important to realize that that's just kind of a natural division that happens. So moving on, we're going to go to number 5, which is solving, wrong place. We'll just go back there. Okay, solving our solvable problems. Now this, we're not going to take a whole lot of time doing it, but somebody found out that about 60% of problems in marriages actually can't be solved. You know, we like to think that all our problems can be solved, but there's a whole lot of them that will never have a perfect solution. For example, if your ideal vacation is to go lay at the beach in Cancun, okay, that's probably never going to change if your ideal vacation. Whereas his ideal vacation may be to go build a hospital in Africa for vacation, right? So those two are so different. How would they ever change, really? So that problem or that difference is never really going to be solved. So when you come to a problem that can't be solved, it's important to find ways around it, like compromise. 1 year we'll go do your vacation, and the next year we'll go do my vacation. There's other problems where it really is just a matter of figuring out, okay, this is the schedule we need, this is what we have to do. Those are more solvable problems. Like, for example, well, how are we going to find money to pay for our mortgage this month, right? That's a problem that you can work together almost as if you're a small business and see if you can figure it out. So I'm going to give you, how many steps are there here? I'm going to give you 4 steps for solving problems. And if you would like to take notes on this, it might be helpful for you at some time in the future. I don't have this on a slide. So first of all, you start with good manners. when you're solving a problem, right? You don't want to come into the room and try to solve a problem when you're already mad and say, hey, I thought this was taken care of. What's wrong with you? With that whole sort of harsh startup. So good manners, step one is use a softened startup. Like, for example, is this a good time for us to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about? What you do is you complain, but you don't criticize. Okay, so a complaint and criticism are not the same. Let me give you the example. If you say to your spouse, if you notice there's wet towels all over the bathroom, right? So a complaint would be, I really don't like it when you leave your towels all over the bathroom. But a criticism would be, you're such a pig. Why do you always leave your towels all over the bathroom? You're just like your family, right? So that's more global. So in a relationship, there is room for complaint, but there's not room for criticism. Criticism is one of the things that definitely damages relationships. So again, we're on step one of solving problems. You're going to use the softened startup. Complain, don't criticize. You state your feelings without blame, and you express a positive need. It's what you want, not what you don't want. In other words, let's just say that you have a problem because when you come home from work, the laundry is always on the couch, and there's nowhere to sit. Okay, this actually happens. And so a positive complaint or outcome would be, when I come home, I'd really like it if there's a place I could sit, right? So you're saying what would be better for you, what would work, instead of saying, there's always a big mess here and I'm sick of it. You need to do something about it. Okay, so you describe what is happening. You don't evaluate or judge. Be clear, but polite, be appreciative. And don't store things up. I think that's a hard one because many of us, we want to be pleasant people, right? We don't want to make a big deal out of everything. And so we just, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to complain about this. And pretty soon it piles up a little bit like Mount St. Helens, then it just explodes. So it's very important, even when you do have like kind of maybe a little complaint, that you stay current with it. You find a way to say, it's not my favorite when this thing happens. Or, when the hose is over the sidewalk, I'm really afraid somebody's going to trip. I'd like it if when you're finished watering, you could put it back. So that's step one. All that is in step one. Step two is you learn to make and receive repair attempts. So if something has gone wrong and somebody says something that's been hurtful or not helpful and there's some distance, you're feeling this kind of pain, it's really important to find ways to make it better. I was too hasty. I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings. I guess I didn't handle that very well. And if you are in a relationship where both people want to work, it's likely the other person will say, yeah, I was really impatient too. I'm really sorry. So those are like repair attempts. Learn to recognize them when that person is giving you a repair attempt and be gracious about it. Some people won't come out with words. Some people will say, oh, here's some tea. It's kind of like trying to extend the wand of peace or the scepter of peace. They're trying to say, let's be friends again. So you do need to learn to make and receive repair attempts. Remember that book I told you about? There's a lot more about this in that book. If this is interesting to you, I encourage you to find that. Sometimes it's necessary to de-escalate the tension and pull out of a downward cycle of negativity by asking for a break. I think some couples do need to take a time out. It's important, though, when you take a time out to not let it be, I'm just storming out of the house and I'm gone for 3 days. That's not a helpful time out. A helpful time out is when you say, listen, I'm getting a little overwhelmed with this conversation. I'd like to take a break for about half an hour, and then I'll come back and talk about it again. If you're that much in self-control, do it. All right, step number 3 is to soothe yourself. Let's say you're already having this kind of problem and this same problem keeps coming up time after time. You're so sick of it. But it's important to be able to soothe yourself and to be able to say things to yourself like, okay, we're going to get through this. It's important that we learn to solve this for the sake of our children. Or I know that we're getting better at this every time. Or we need to get this solved by Christmas. It's things that kind of calm yourself down a little bit. What happens sometimes is one person in the relationship doesn't know how to calm him or herself. And they always depend on the other person to calm them down. But both people need to take responsibility for chill out, being able to calm themselves with their breathing actually get your heart rate down a little bit. Step number 4 is compromise. So compromise, you all know what that means. It's when you, like one person definitely wants Chinese food and the other wants Mexican food. How do you compromise? So, I mean, that's sort of an easy example, right? What you can do is say, okay, well, tonight we'll do one of these and then the next night we'll do another one. I wish it was always that easy, but it's not. Sometimes it does take some compromise. Sometimes there'll be a family where one person says, we must eat dinner at the table every night, 7 days a week. The other one says, no, I like eating in front of the TV. That's good for us. And so a compromise would be sharing that time, right? Maybe 3 days off, 3 days on, something like that. All right, so the 6th step is to overcome gridlock. Now, many of these like perpetual conflicts, like conflicts about these things that don't get solved, like one person wants another baby, the other one doesn't want another baby. That's not going to get solved, really. How does that work? Those are actually become gridlocked. And when you examine what's behind that kind of gridlock, it usually has to do with the fact that people have different life dreams. Like, what is this one person's life dream? It may be to have this big family and lots of outdoor barbecues and lots of fun. That's what life has meaning for them. That's what it's all about. For the other person, it may be that they like to go to sort of like a meditative retreat and just be alone and have a lot of peace with just the two of them and quiet. So those kinds of things really don't match very well at all. And it's possible that those people will butt heads perennially all the time. So it's important for couples who find themselves together with these gridlocks that they actually have regular kind of business meetings, you could say, and actually talk about what their future is going to be like. Like in 5 years, what would they like to be doing? Would they like to buy that boat or not? Or would they like to go on a trip? Or what do they want to do with their money and with their resources and with their time and with their retirement? And those are, the bottom line is getting past gridlock. It's not necessary to become part of the other's dream, but to honor those dreams. I know one couple that I see is that she loves to travel all over the place. And he's not into it that much. He's willing to go with her a couple of times a year. And they have resources too, lucky for them, right? But so they've just kind of managed a deal where she'll go do her thing. She'll travel to see her relatives in New York, and she even has some friends in Asia. And she'll do these trips, and he'll come with her on one of them. But he doesn't want to go on all the trips. So that's how they overcome their gridlock. That wouldn't work for everybody. Some people would feel too lonely with that kind of distance. But for them, it's one way they can stay together. And so that yearly strategy meeting can be a good thing. I don't know when you'd want to do it, at the time of your birthday or your anniversary or sometime. I noticed that in Habakkuk in the Bible, it actually says, write the vision, make it plain. So you can be like a small company, a small business, and actually write out what are your goals for your family and for your life together. So what you could do is you start your own strategizing. You can brainstorm and write down your marriage mission statement. I've never done that. We've never done our marriage mission statement, but what an interesting idea, right? What is our marriage about? For Christians, a lot of it might be of being a light to the world or being a good influence in your community. And then all the things you do can fit into that overall mission statement. So as you unearth and share your dreams and aspirations, your path out of gridlock will gradually begin to appear. So then we're at the very top now to create this shared meaning. Marriage can have an intentional sense of shared purpose, meaning, family values, and cultural legacy. Each couple and each family creates its own microculture with customs, like Sunday dinner out or myths. One of the cultural things that we do in our family is every New Year's Eve we have cheese fondue at our house. My husband used to live in Switzerland, and so he got used to cheese. And so it's one of the really nice rituals and customs that we share. And if I would talk to any of you, I'm sure that there's things that you really like about your family. If I was to ask you, hey, what's good about being in your family? You'd say, well, we do this, or we play this, or we have this kind of joke. And I think those things are so valuable, so very important. My daughters are both middle-aged now. I guess they're both in their 40s. And I love seeing how their families are developing their own rituals and their own customs, the things that are important to them. One of my daughters just finished, I got to brag a little bit, she's working on refurbishing one of those little campers that looks like a canned ham, one of those little ones, and she's got like a red stripe on it. It's really cute. So that's one of the things that she wants to get into, is a little bit of camping with her family. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so that's all I actually have with this part of the seminar. This is all about making relationships better. And for the young people who don't have a life partner yet, I hope that you'll remember how important it is to get to know your friends and to get to know people so that you can share life in the very best way possible.